This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live.
Hello and welcome to the Friday Twilight Show. I'm Claire Cannon. Thank you for joining me, whether you are here live or listening to the podcast. For most people, celebrating this evening as it's the start of the summer break, 6 weeks where there's no school, no lessons to plan for and no break duties to cover. Today, I look at how we can use this time to rest intentionally.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live. Tune in live at ttradio.org, or to join in the conversation, download the Podbean app and search Teachers Talk Radio. Follow the hashtag TTRadio. Tune in, talk it out with Teachers Talk Radio.
Thank you once again for joining me here on Teachers Talk Radio. If you're listening live, a special thank you to you, as it is quite likely to be the end of term for you this Friday evening. If you're listening on the podcast, thank you to you as well. And I hope you find the things we talk about today are useful and give you a few ideas for your summer break. So I am thinking all about well-being over the summer and things that we can do to support ourselves, but perhaps moving away from some of the say traditional, but some of the more sort of normal things, regular things that are suggested about well-being, but actually to look at it from a slightly different angle. Why are we going to look at well-being? Well, term is always so busy. Everybody's always on. There isn't really a time when you can switch off or have a huge amount of downtime. Whether you're in lessons and delivering content as a teacher, whether you're supporting students as a teaching assistant, if you have a role in administration or around school as a site agent, or whatever your role is, it's very busy. There's always things happening and always things to do. That to-do list sometimes feels like it's never getting any shorter despite our best efforts. So it's always really important that we do spend the time. And if you are finished now, you've got probably 6 weeks or so to make the most of doing something different to your normal term time routine. And if you are someone who's still got a couple of days to go, it's not long. You'll get there. It'll be fine, and then you can have that well-deserved rest. So, we are, as I say, in a profession that is always looking out for other people. And actually, rarely do we get the time to spend on us, not just in our working day, but sometimes it feels like we don't get much of that time after the working day either, whether that's the evenings or the weekends. Couple that with the fact that as school staff, we're quite often people. We like to work with others. We like to do things to support other people. And we're quite often very good at putting other people first and ourselves somewhere else down the priority list. And, I've already seen some comments popping up on various sort of social media, LinkedIn, Twitter, X, whatever it's called at the moment. People saying, how can I switch off? How can I get myself to not be in this, busy frame of mind, that sort of frenetic state? I just feel like I'm still on the go and I haven't yet, got to that point. Or when will I get to that point? Some people worrying, are they even going to get to that point? I did actually see one person comment that it takes them 2 weeks just to decompress. So to kind of go from the full-on busyness of a school term to feeling much more calm, feeling much more settled, and able to really enjoy that break and to take that rest. Again, comments around my head won't stop spinning, and people are saying that I'm already thinking about going back. And actually, just before I came on air to do the show, I saw a little graphic pop up, and it was saying, some people want to do that work over the summer, and there's, in many ways, if that's what you want to do, it's in your control. You're choosing to do that. But we don't have to contractually. We don't have to. Whether you feel you have to is obviously different. But there were some interesting comments starting to come through on the back of that graphic. with some people saying, oh, it's a good way of getting ahead for the new term or finishing things off, perhaps from this term. But the other side of that, people saying, you aren't meant to be working at this time, and it is the time for you to take that rest and to, as I said before, to switch off. So, say interesting sort of seeing that picture and the different opinions around how we use our summer break. But for me, definitely around a time or being a time for rest. And reading those comments, a lot of them did resonate with me, I have to say. And a little bit of a personal story. So, working as a Senko, did that in two different schools over a number of years. Really enjoyed that role, but very, very, very busy. Lots and lots of demands on your time, lots and lots of sort of conflicting and competing priorities often to deal with. Um, Plus the fact that you're dealing with students with the additional needs and supporting the families around that as well, which brings its own set of challenges. So when I got to the summer holiday a couple of years ago, I was that person who couldn't switch off, who still going to bed and not falling asleep, waking up early, wondering what was I going to do with my day because I suddenly hadn't got that structure and that routine that I'd been used to for so long, for the school year. So seeing those comments does make me sort of think back to that time. And I do get the person who said it took 2 weeks to switch off. Yeah, absolutely. For me, it was spending some time day in day out actually with animals, just being outside, being with the animals, going for walks, going up the field, just something that was completely different. And I needed that time outside in nature to just start to slow down, and to get out of that mindset of needing to be constantly on the go, and feeling that if I wasn't, I was somehow, I don't know, wasting a day or not using it as it should be. So, I do completely appreciate where these comments are coming from that people are posting online. And the other thing actually that for me is a few years ago, being honest, I didn't see well-being as something that was particularly for me. Um, I could appreciate it from other people's perspectives and could see that perhaps some from how I was thinking at the time. There's some people who perhaps needed it more than me, or that I didn't need to think about it at all. And actually, I was really, really fortunate to have an amazing head teacher who supported me to unpick that and actually to see things very differently and to address the fact that, well-being isn't just about doing something when you are unwell or when you're struggling with your mental health. It's actually a bit like with our physical health. You don't suddenly decide, if you're a runner, oh, I'm going to stop running because I can run 5K now. You carry on because you want to carry on being able to run 5K. Might even want to do it faster, or you might want to run a bigger distance, but you don't stop with your physical health. And actually, it was a really good way of thinking about actually, you don't stop with your mental health either. Um, so, again, going back to that thing of your brain always being on the go and struggling to slow down, I hadn't linked that to well-being at the time, and I was, very grateful to that person who helped me make that connection and helped me realize that actually things didn't have to be like that, and things could be quite different. And it's kind of led to me actually then looking at well-being from a whole school level. So I had worked in a leadership role where that was my main sort of area to focus on, and I've done quite a lot of reading around well-being and why certain things work or why they don't work and what's actually going on in our brains. So this thing about feeling like your brain won't stop and it's just whirring around. There's actually, there's neurochemicals doing things in our brain. There's reasons for that. There's an article by Francisco Moro. It was published in 2010. It's quite old now, but it's still relevant. Um, in the journal Brain Research, and he found that, and this is a quote actually from the article: stress can be defined as a brain-body reaction towards stimuli arising from the environment. And what this was essentially saying is it disrupts something that's known as homeostasis. Homeostasis being the point at which our body is everything is in balance. So what is happening when we are stressed is that there is an imbalance, or we are unbalanced in the sense of the chemicals that are going around, which does make sense. But the bit that for me was interesting there was that he said stress is a brain body reaction. There is an interlink between the two. You cannot have one functioning well without the other. And that was an important point to make, because I think it's well known that stress is something that affects the neurochemical balance in our brain. But actually, to make the explicit link between our brain and our body um, was something, it was important, and it was not new at the time, but not something that perhaps was being talked about or given as much airtime as perhaps it might. So that then led me to thinking specifically about teachers and the particular stresses, the particular demands on teachers and on school staff. And there's an article by the Blend Institute that talks about our neurobiology actually can take 3 to 6 months to return to what it calls normal, so a state where it's in balance, as I said before, to homeostasis. Now, what was interesting about the Blend study is this was all done without medication. So, to me, that was quite a useful comparison to us as school staff, because we wouldn't necessarily start taking medication just to address or rebalance our well-being for the summer break. So the fact that the study was people who were not taking medication to try and restore things, not taking antidepressants, not taking sleep medication or anything like that. It was just about, can we monitor, can we see how long it takes to get back to an equilibrium if we kind of leave people be from a medication side of things, but actually support their well-being in other ways, perhaps more holistic ways. So what they suggested, and again, probably nothing new sounding in this bit, but nutrition, sleep, and exercise all came out as being really important things that help restore the balance in our body. Again, a bit like with the brain body relationship from earlier on, Blend was really clear that this was not one out of the three or two out of the three. You need a combination, because each one on its own produces a slightly different biological response. And you need the combination of those biological responses to kind of moderate each other. And as a combination, they can restore us back to that state of being balanced, and of having that sort of feeling of connection, I guess, between our brain and our body. Now, I find the length of time quite interesting, and rather actually than being a gloomy picture, as obviously, most of us, our holidays are not 3 months long, but I think what it does go to show is how important it is to be intentional about our well-being year round, because we get that 6 weeks, month and a half. But if they're saying it can take longer than that to get back to normal, or something, that's in balance, that feels good, then actually perhaps we need to think about going less far away from normal, if that makes sense, um, during term time, so that it doesn't take us long to get us back to that state in the summer holiday. Going back, actually linking that to the study by Francisco Morio that I mentioned earlier on. Morrow also noted that resilience probably arises as a result of changes in the body brain integration. What he was suggesting is that we can actually influence how resilient we feel and improve our well-being if we take action, do something to redress the imbalance that stress causes. So I thought that was quite a nice little roundup of the background to sort of the neuroscience of well-being, some of the little bits that are going on inside us that we can control but we can't see. And that idea of resilience is particularly important. So after the break, we'll pick up on that in a little bit more detail.
Hi teachers, we're Apps for Good, and we give schools like yours free introductory computing courses. Our courses are for everyone, including those who aren't computing teachers, and they're fully equipped with resources mapped to the UK computing curriculum. Independent learning is central to our courses. Your students will develop essential and digital skills by working in teams to create prototype apps for good. We'll even connect you with industry volunteers to give real-world feedback. Let's empower every young person you teach to shape their future with technology. Speak to us at www.appsforgood.org. Imagine having your own instructional coach available 24/7. Now you can with the Teaching How-Tos platform. This highly personalised social platform empowers busy teachers to learn and apply evidence-based teaching techniques, either independently, working collaboratively with their peers, or with our new AI assistant. The platform features over 160 visual guides to teaching techniques, designed to help you quickly and easily implement high-impact practices that boost student engagement and improve learning outcomes. Join over 200 institutions worldwide that are elevating their teaching practices with the How-To app. No gurus, just practical support anytime you need it. Interested in finding out more? Visit teachinghowtos.com and register for our next webinar.
Are you looking for best practices and innovative strategies to foster confident, lifelong readers? Watch sessions by thought leaders in education, literacy experts, and EdTech specialists from the International Reading Conference for free. The lineup included renowned speakers such as TV personality and education expert Basit Siddiqui and beloved children's author Michael Rosen. The three-day conference explored a range of topics at the forefront of the current educational landscape, with sessions relevant for all educators and key stages. Sign up to receive the recordings for free by visiting the Reading Solutions UK website at readingsolutionsuk.co.uk.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out! Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading!
Okay, thank you again for listening here on Teachers Talk Radio. As I said, if you were listening live, thank you. I do appreciate it's quite likely to be the end of term for you, so appreciating you being here if that is the case. And if you've still got a couple of days to go, not long now, and then you'll be able to put your feet up and enjoy some time off. Well deserved, I'm sure, as well. Today I'm thinking about well-being for the summer holidays. And I wanted to take this away from some of the often recommended things. Um, Absolutely, things like mindfulness, things like meditation, absolutely got their place and really, really beneficial. Something that I've tried and sort of see what effect it has on me from time to time. So, it's definitely they are definitely things that are worth having in your sort of well-being toolkit, if you like, especially if you've tried them and you find they work for you. Um, However, well-being is quite a complex thing. There's a lot more going on in our brains and in our bodies. And as I said in the before the break, with the studies that have been done, it's very much around the brain and body integration and the fact that actually we need those connections to be there for our well-being to be in a good place and for us to build resilience. I was talking about how stress can lead to an imbalance of chemicals in our brain, and there's all sorts of different chemicals that are involved. You may have heard of things like dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin. There's lots of different things that all contribute to how we feel and how we respond to things. But the key bit for me that I think is, sometimes when we talk about well-being, it's things we can do in the here and now. I think that's brilliant, but also how can we build resilience? What can we do that's helping us not just now, but actually for the longer term as well? And I really like the idea of a concept based around the 7 types of rest. And this is where I want to take the conversation today a little bit away from some of those traditional or often talked about types of things that support well-being, because the 7 types of rest is an idea that's gained traction and interest over the last sort of year or 18 months, I suppose. It's definitely been popping up on my LinkedIn feed and things a lot more recently. But it was also reported in an article in The Guardian. If you want to find it, if you Google search the phrase, "Why am I tired all the time?" Um, and it was interesting because in that article, it talks about the fact that between July and September, that search phrase was used more often than any other time of year. And I thought that was interesting because I suppose if you thought about it briefly, you might expect that to be something that was more common in winter, January, February, when it's dark, when we've just had Christmas. Um, Perhaps people are feeling the effects of overindulging, or having spent a lot of money on the celebrations, or just having spent a lot of time with people, which for some of us is a thing in itself. So interesting that that is the case. But this, going back to building resilience, what can we do to support ourselves, not just now, but in the long term as well? So let's have a think about what the 7 types of rest actually are. And I think, it's important to say that they are intentional actions. This is very different to slumping on the sofa at the end of the day when you've just had that nightmare journey home, or you've had that, a day from, you want to forget, and you're just, kind of doom scrolling through your Facebook feed or whatever while the kettle boils. It's very different to that. Um, these are in no particular order. It is often the order that gets mentioned if you read articles, but I've I've not seen anything to say they are in any particular priority order. I think it's just the order they kind of seem to be in. So, as I say, in no particular order, starting with physical rest. Now, remember I said this is about intentional action. Intentional action. So, something we choose to do, and something that is um, not necessarily sitting down. It is active for some people to take a physical rest. So for me, that can be actually taking the dog for a walk, or going for a run. It can be something that's quite energetic. The point here is that rest is not about sitting down doing nothing. It's about something that gives you energy, makes you feel good, and supports that brain body integration. And if you are a runner, or if you know someone who is, you may have heard people talk about things like the runner's high, which is to do with the endorphins and everything that sort of goes around your body when you've been doing something energetic. It doesn't have to be running, but quite often it is. And that's where that phrase runner's high came from. So physical rest, getting up, going for a walk, going for a run, doing something energetic. Now, if that sounds like a little bit too much, and actually for me at the moment it definitely is, because it is really quite hot outside this evening, it could be something more like standing up and stretching out. So if you've been sitting down, it could be something like rolling your neck. It could be something like tensing and releasing your muscles. It could be stretching out tall, wide, whatever it is you want to do. So it doesn't have to be quite as energetic as going for a run, but it's still something you have intentionally decided to do. Now, it doesn't, that said, it can also be completely slowing down to the point of stopping. So if you are intentionally deciding to be still, you're intentionally lying down, perhaps with nothing to do. But that's not just because you've run out of jobs or it's the end of your to-do list. It's because you have set aside time when that's my time when I'm just going to lay there. Could be on the sun lounger in the garden. It could be, if it's a cold day, could be with a blanket over you. Some people may at that point add in something like a meditation. But it is about whatever works for you. And the important thing is you change things around you, experiment, and you find out what works for you. Um, I again in my lead as sort of focusing on well-being, did hear some people saying, "Oh, that doesn't work for me. Oh, that doesn't really make much of a difference." That's fine because we're all different, and different things will work for different people, and they won't work for other people. So all of that, absolutely fine. Play about with it, find things that work for you, and you will get to know what works for you. And it might also depend on the situation. So, what works for you one day might be different another day, depending on what has been happening in your life or whatever's going on. So, physical rest, as I said, can be going for a walk, going for a run, quite energetic, could be standing up and stretching, or it could be intentionally being still and taking a moment to press the pause button. So that is the first of the 7 types of rest. Second one is mental rest. Now, lots of people talk about brain fog. Some people talk about feeling tired and struggling to concentrate, or perhaps making decisions is quite challenging. Now, I would say a note of caution here because there could be many other reasons for that, things underlying. So, obviously, if you had concerns, please do go and get yourself checked out. But it can be a response to the fact that our cognitive capacity, our brain bandwidth, if you like, has just been used up. It's overloaded by whatever we've been dealing with at school, in our home lives, combination of all of those things. And actually, we've just got nothing left. So we need to take a break from that situation. Now, a bit like with physical rest, that doesn't have to mean switching off completely. It can. Um, don't get me wrong, it can. It could be that you just decide when you're taking your physical rest and you're going to lay down, you're just going to let your mind go wherever it wants to go. A bit of daydreaming doesn't really hurt anybody. And you'll see actually as we kind of go through this list of the 7 types of rest that actually there's quite a lot of crossover. And that's deliberate, that's intentional because it's not about having one for each day of the week because there's 7. It's it's about again finding a combination that works for you. Anyway, back to mental rest. It could be that you turn off your phone notifications for an hour or so. We have so much input um, coming at us all the time. Um, I read something the other day about the amount of signs we read as we come up to a junction, and the amount there's the traffic lights and there's the directions to whatever towns and villages nearby. There could be a speed sign. There could be something telling you like that no right turn. Whatever it is, there's a huge amount of information involved in just going round one roundabout or one junction. So turning off those notifications, turning off that incoming stream of information for even for an hour or so. I know some people who go the whole thing of right, everything's getting deleted off my phone in the summer. That's great if that's what works for you. Will work for some, won't work for others. So again, find something that suits you. It could be something that is repetitive. And interestingly, there's sort of people saying it's not just about the mental rest, but about the movement. So a repetitive movement that you don't have to think about. You can actually, I quite like this one because you can tie it into perhaps that, redecorating the room that you want to do because rollering, um, that motion, but you're not having to particularly think about the movement. Your brain is not having to do complex calculations or manage competing demands of different people in your classroom. You can just concentrate about that one thing and you can hopefully anyway get it done. That's another thing is ticking something off your list. It is done, it is finished. And there might be other repetitive things that you can think of that they require less brain power. They just allow you to get into a rhythm, get into a bit of a flow, kind of zone out for a little while. That is all to do with mental rest. However, a bit like with physical rest, you might decide that your mental rest needs to be a little bit more active. So it could be that you decide to do something like a puzzle, Sudokus, crosswords, things like that. Um, something, it might sound a bit odd, but actually what's going on is that you're shifting the emphasis away from thoughts of work, thoughts of that to-do list, thoughts of whatever happened at the end of term. I don't know, could be anything. But you're focusing your mind somewhere else by doing that puzzle, by doing that game, by doing that Sudoku, whatever it is. So again, rest doesn't have to be slowing down and doing nothing. It's something that works for you, and gives you that sense that things are that little bit better. And all of these things are incremental. None of them are a quick fix, a magic wand. They are incremental things that will add up over time. Okay, that's two of the types of rest. Third one, emotional rest. Now, this one is especially important for school staff, for teaching staff, and for those who are classroom based, because compassion fatigue is now being researched and looked into in much more detail. We are spending a lot of our time co-regulating for our students, supporting them to deal with difficult situations. That's part of our role. We are teachers. We are teachers of people as well as teachers of maths or science or geography, whatever your subject is. We are teachers of people, and that can have quite a big impact on us if we are, particularly somebody who, spending time with a lot of people is a draw on our resource anyway, our own resource. So, first of all, acknowledge that you have those feelings. And that is fine. It is fine to feel a bit annoyed that something happened, or that, even to kind of reflect on what's happened in the sense of, why am I annoyed that I'm feeling annoyed? That's fine too. Let those feelings happen. It can be harder than it sounds, actually, because we quite often deem certain feelings to be negative, or we shouldn't have them. Sometimes we say things like, oh, somebody else has it worse, or, oh, well, look at them and they're managing. But this is about you. This is about how you feel, and how you feel is okay. I'm not saying you feel okay, but you have to have the emotion is okay. We are allowed to feel them. You might find it helpful to express those feelings in some way. So emotional rest can come from talking to a friend. It might be that you go for a walk with that friend, and look, then we're back to physical rest as well. Quite often, actually, going outside, being in the fresh air, walking, being in nature is something that can be really, really helpful. Another option is maybe to write things down. Nobody has to look. If you've got a journal or a notebook. Something else that I tried, and I have to say I was very skeptical of to start with, but I thought, what's the harm in trying? There's nothing really to lose. Was writing down 3 positives from the day, and I actually started that in January. It was a New Year's thing. I didn't know how long I was going to do it for. I didn't particularly set a goal, actually. Other than I was going to try it, I didn't sort of specify how long. But what I noticed after a couple of weeks is I actually started to look for the 3 things during my day, rather than getting to the end of the day and then wondering, oh, what are they? Let's stop and think. That was quite an interesting sort of self-reflection, actually, that you kind of, don't know, but primed myself to start looking for the positive. So writing down 3 things that you're grateful for, that you're pleased with, or that you enjoyed, something that could be really helpful for your emotional rest over the summer. Okay, so we've done 3: physical, mental, emotional. Next one is social rest. This can mean different things to different people, like all of them. But going back a while now, actually, I did a show on introversion and leadership. So, social rest, if you're somebody who is an introvert, could be taking that time away. Could be taking that time on your own, or perhaps with just one close friend. And again, it's a bit of an escape, I suppose, bit of a downtime from having those interactions. And it's not to say that introverts don't like social interaction. That's actually a bit of a misconception. Um, Generally, we do. I definitely do. But it over time, or if it's a big gathering, certainly I feel that there's more of my battery is drained. If I was a phone, I'd be sort of start at 100% and end up on like 20 or something. Whereas other people who are extroverts, actually it can be a recharge for them to be in a big group. Or they start at 100, whereas I end up on 20%. They might only end up on 80. They've still got a lot to give and a lot to go. So finding ways to socialize, again, in ways that feel supportive to you, because connection with other people is really important. And something else that I found when I was researching this, actually, and it was such a good point, which I'd never really thought about or put words to, but it makes so much sense. It's about spending time with people who accept you as you are. We spend a lot of time as educators putting a bit of a mask on in front of our class. We might not be feeling great that day, but we have to still go and stand and teach. Something might have happened the lesson before. It's not the next class's fault. They come in and they deserve and they expect to have that good lesson, and you kind of as you are. Not to say that you can't obviously share how you feel, but there's still there's that professional boundary, isn't there, that we have to maintain when we're in that setting. So building that network and spending time with people who accept you as you are, could be actually something new that you try, make new connections. So I don't know if you've got a hobby, have you got a sport or an interest, and there's a group that you can join over the summer, especially while we've got the time. We know as school staff, certain things that happen during the week, it is really tricky, if not impossible, to get to, just because we can't take half a morning to work from home necessarily. Um, so we do miss out on some things. So make the most of time, perhaps, to go and try something new and make those connections while we have the 6 weeks off. Okay, we've got 3 more to go. We've done 4 of the 7 types of rest. The next one is sensory rest. I really like this one. Really like this one. And going back to what I said earlier on when I was talking about mental rest and turning off your phone notifications so you're not getting that constant stream of information, ties in really nicely with sensory rest, because our world is so very loud. There is so much information coming at us all the time, and we can feel like we're on demand 24/7. We have to be available. So if you can tune some of that out, if you can take a rest from that and give yourself time to switch off, as I keep saying, but also just to kind of detune from that level of input, that's really, really important. And again, some studies going on around sensory rest actually being, of all the 7, the one where we have the biggest deficit. And it doesn't just come from our phones. They get a bad rap, but it's all the things that go on in our lives. It can be street lights. It's not dark. I know it's not dark because it's the summer and we have nice long days, but it doesn't get dark, perhaps, particularly where you live. Can you see many of the stars? Possibly not, because there's lots of street lights. Lots of street noise as well. Cars going by. Particularly if you live in an urban area, you can probably hear some of those things. I did mention phones, particularly want to come back to them, but screens in general, where we spend a lot of time on our screens in some way. So you can see why there is that school of thought that sensory rest is the biggest deficit that we have. So what can we do about it? Finding a space where you can be silent is a real key here, real crucial part. And it's you to be silent. It doesn't necessarily have to be the world. I mean, great if you can find somewhere that you can't hear anything, but can you go somewhere with your headphones on? Listen, I don't know, listen to an audiobook, listen to a teacher's talk radio podcast would be great. But find somewhere where you can just not hear the noise of the world. The alternative to that is to find somewhere where you can hear noises that are known to be helpful and soothing, actually, and regulating for our emotions. So I've mentioned a few times going for a walk with the dog, getting out into nature, going into the woods, going into your local park. If you've got a lake, if you live near the coast, I'm very jealous if you do because I love going up to the coast with my dogs. It's quite a long way from where I live. But finding a space where you can listen to those natural sounds, because again, being shown to be really soothing and really calming, and something that can help regulate our nervous system, which again links back to that brain and body connection. It can also, so we have five senses. It doesn't just have to be things that we can see and things that we can hear. So it might be that there's a smell that you particularly like. Could be flowers in your garden, could be a certain meal cooking. On that note, that kind of leads into taste as well. It could be that lots of people say I get more time to cook healthy meals, better meals over the summer. Well, choose something that, I don't know, maybe it evokes a childhood memory or something you find comforting. I don't know, but again, it's about what works for you, and ties in very nicely to those ideas from earlier on about the idea of nutrition being really important in supporting our resilience and our well-being. I haven't done texture yet. I'm going to do that one very quickly before we move on. So choosing something that perhaps feels comfortable to wear. So the clothes that you choose to put on, obviously not restricted by professional guidelines now. So feel free, wear what you like, wear clothes that feel comfortable, materials that, whether it's hot, cold, whatever, materials that perhaps feel nice. Could also be something like taking a very hot shower, a very cold shower if you're into that kind of thing. But textures and sensations, again, things that are actually quite easy to build in our day. And I hope actually, as we've been talking through some of these types of rest, that you can see that it's not about adding in loads of stuff necessarily. It's about what you can do that's intentional, that's easy to fit in, that works with your schedule, works with whatever else you're doing, but will make a difference because it is intentional, because it is deliberate. It's not, oh, I've got 5 minutes, I'm going to do this. I know in my day, I'm going to take 5 minutes to go and stand out in the garden and just feel the breeze. I know in my day, I've got, I don't know, 20 minutes, so I'm going to go and walk the dog. Walk the dog a different route. That's something that, we get very kind of ingrained into certain habits, which can be great, but it equally can mean we're perhaps, I don't know, limiting our horizons a little bit, which takes me on nicely to creative rest. That's the next type. So as I say, taking your dog for a walk, go down a different route. If you're going to the village shop, can you walk a different way around your village? But do something different and see what you notice. See what's different. Even something I did the other day was I decided to walk one of my dog routes the opposite way round. I don't know why. I always go clockwise. For years, literally years, I have gone clockwise, but I decided to go the other way round. And it was surprising what I noticed on the route that I've walked probably literally thousands of times. So, creative rest, it isn't just, as I say, hopefully you've seen already, it's not just about art, can be, um, but it can be creative decisions. It could be the way we think about solving a problem or the solution we come up with to a problem. If you are thinking school, it could be strategic decisions. It could be to do with your department. Could just, I don't know, be your seating plan. At home, it could be all sorts of things. Where you're going to go for your day out. Perhaps you could tie in some of the other types of rest as well into your day out. Um, it can have an art theme. I mean, you might like to, I don't know, if you're someone that likes to go to a gallery or a museum, it could be something like the theatre. But equally, as I mentioned rollering earlier on, it could be things like DIY, fixing something, doing something around the house, a little project that's needed doing for a while. It could even be making a cake. So lots of different things that are creative that will help us to regulate how we feel and take our minds away from that busy, always on, switched on pace that we've been used to for all of term time, really. Um, Now, anyway, it brings me on to the last of the 7 types of rest. So this one is spiritual rest. And it's specifically called that because it's not about religion, although it absolutely can include that if that is relevant and important to you. But it can also be about community activities. It could be that you do some volunteering, doing something for others. Definitely, that's also something that has been shown to help our sense of connection, sense of achievement, a bit of a sense of pride as well in what we've managed to do. It's about contributing to the greater good, I suppose. Going back to what I said earlier on, this spiritual type of rest can include things like meditation and yoga. For me, it's somewhere that I feel a sense of vastness. Actually, I like to be on the edge of places. Now, I mentioned earlier on the beach. If you live by the beach, I'm very jealous of you because I do love to go. Actually, in winter, to on one of those bright, sunny, cold winter's days, can be windy. I actually quite like that as well. But a windswept beach, somewhere Hunstanton, one of my favourites. But I do like to go to places that feel very remote, that feel vast, feel some kind of untamed. So things like that. Again, that's finding something that works for you. It could be, if we're talking spiritual rest here, it could be spending time with animals. Animals are non-judgmental. They are not criticizing. They will give us their unconditional love, and they can be very, very responsive to our emotional state. If you don't have your own animal, you don't have access to animals, doing things like going for a walk, again, we're back to going out in nature, but going somewhere that you can watch. Well, I don't know, it could be watching birds, it could be watching any type of wildlife really, but going out and spending that time absorbing yourself in the kind of something else, the being of something else, whether that's a domestic or pet animal or something that's wild. So lots there, the 7 types of rest. I'm just going to quickly recap all of them in order. In order, no particular order, but the order that I talked about them. So we've got physical rest, mental rest, emotional rest, social rest, sensory rest, creative rest, and spiritual rest. There's a lot of information there. I hope that you can see something in that sort of collection of ideas, something that's helpful for you, something that you can get started with, and how they overlap. That's also quite important. It's all about that integration. The idea is that whatever you choose to do, as I said earlier on, you choose to do it with intention, and it's something that you can build in to your schedule, to your routine. Because mentioned earlier on, it's about not just building your well-being in the here and now, but supporting your resilience in the longer term. If you can have these little things that you do, these little points in your day, points in your week, where you've got, it doesn't have to be long. It could be 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever works for you. But just those times when you can take those little breaks that will recharge you. And you think about that, the cumulative effect over the year of taking 5-10 minutes 2 or 3 times a week. I haven't done the maths. It's the end of term. If somebody wants to, that's going to add up to quite a lot of time spent on you, supporting your well-being. And because you are drip feeding it, you're not doing it all in one go and forgetting about it, but you're keeping it going and it's sustainable. So it's not just sustainable then for you in terms of making the time, but it's sustaining your well-being in that longer term. Okay. Going to have a little bit of a different think about well-being and rest after the break. So we'll hear from our sponsors, hear the news, and then we'll come back.
Hi teachers, we're Apps for Good, and we give schools like yours free introductory computing courses. Our courses are for everyone, including those who aren't computing teachers, and they're fully equipped with resources mapped to the UK computing curriculum. Independent learning is central to our courses. Your students will develop essential and digital skills by working in teams to create prototype apps for good. We'll even connect you with industry volunteers to give real-world feedback. Let's empower every young person you teach to shape their future with technology. Speak to us at www.appsforgood.org. Imagine having your own instructional coach available 24/7. Now you can with the Teaching How-Tos platform. This highly personalised social platform empowers busy teachers to learn and apply evidence-based teaching techniques, either independently, working collaboratively with their peers, or with our new AI assistant. The platform features over 160 visual guides to teaching techniques, designed to help you quickly and easily implement high-impact practices that boost student engagement and improve learning outcomes. Join over 200 institutions worldwide that are elevating their teaching practices with the How-To app. No gurus, just practical support anytime you need it. Interested in finding out more? Visit teachinghowtos.com and register for our next webinar.
Are you looking for best practices and innovative strategies to foster confident, lifelong readers? Watch sessions by thought leaders in education, literacy experts, and EdTech specialists from the International Reading Conference for free. The lineup included renowned speakers such as TV personality and education expert Basit Siddiqui and beloved children's author Michael Rosen. The three-day conference explored a range of topics at the forefront of the current educational landscape, with sessions relevant for all educators and key stages. Sign up to receive the recordings for free by visiting the Reading Solutions UK website at readingsolutionsuk.co.uk.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out! Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading!
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News.
In higher education news, the BBC reports on the 5,000 students who have brought claims against University College London over the quality of teaching provided during the pandemic. The news website reports that the trial will move to the start of 2026 and will likely be the first, although current and former students from other universities are also seeking compensation. The lead claimant against UCL began his campaign for compensation while still a student, studying for a master's between 2020 and 2021. He told the BBC he paid £14,000 for his international politics degree, which ended up being solely online. He is suing UCL because he says he did not get what he paid for. Test cases will be identified in November, although lawyers representing the students said they would welcome sensible settlement proposals from UCL so that this matter does not proceed to trial. A spokesperson for UCL said the university had prioritised health and safety of the community and followed UK government guidance throughout the pandemic. The Standard covers Eton's plans to ban smartphones for the next academic year. From September, the school will issue boys with a phone that can only be used to make calls and send texts. Eton follows several other private schools who have made similar decisions and are urging parents to only buy smartphones if absolutely necessary. The Eton rules apply to pupils who are aged 13 and in their first year at the school. A letter sent to parents of new boarders said that any smartphone should be taken home after its SIM card was transferred to the school-issued simple handset. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer says he's not in favour of simply banning phones for under 16s. In May, a committee of MPs said the new government should consider a ban within its first year because of what it called serious dangers posed to children. The PM said there was a serious question to be asked about what content children can access and how it could be controlled, but that a ban wasn't a practical way forward. Sir Keir was speaking on ITV's Good Morning Britain and said he would sit down with anyone to look at how to put better protections in place. He avoided questions about his own children's use of smartphones, saying he wanted to keep them out of political discussions of any kind. BBC News reports on a review commissioned by Reading Borough Council following the death of head teacher Ruth Perry. The review criticised a culture of high-stakes accountability that led to the public condemnation of individuals. The review included conversations with Mrs. Perry's colleagues and governors at the primary school she led, as well as the head teachers and council officers in the local area. There were also meetings with the family of Mrs. Perry. The review concluded that what happened to Mrs. Perry showed the folly of the macho culture of high-stakes accountability. It also recommends the local authority support calls for Ofsted to scrap its one-word judgments. Mrs. Perry's sister, Professor Julie Waters, said she welcomed the call for the council to join the campaign, but said the review goes very lightly on the local authority. Ofsted will publish a review later this summer. Finally, Ireland's RTE focuses on Queen's University Belfast's recognition of the support role pets play in educational attainment. 25 animals took part in a special graduation ceremony following the main summer graduations. Queen's said the gesture is based on research that shows the important degree of support animals can provide as study buddies. Dogs, cats and a hamster took to the red carpet for the informal ceremony, with plenty of puns in the awards, which included a doctorate and a certificate. The university said research has shown that time spent with pets can improve concentration levels and lower stress, two things that are important when studying. This has been your Teachers Talk Radio News with Jo Fox.
Hey, thank you to our sponsors as always, and a couple of interesting articles there in the news. So one about the phones being changed to ones that are not smartphones. We were talking earlier on about notifications and how if we turn them off, we can get a little bit of sensory rest from that constant, the pinging and the various noises that they make. And also actually about the animals at the end. I do love the idea of a dogtorate. I take my dog into school and, we're talking again about animals, their impact on our well-being and mental health, definitely something that I've seen working really well. Okay, so as I say, talking about well-being and rest, particularly the 7 types of rest, which is a specific concept of things that we can do to support our well-being now that we've got to the 6-week summer holiday. We know that, good intentions, that's great. And, let's set out with the goal of spending a bit of time for ourselves, supporting ourselves to feel better. But we do also know that good intentions can sometimes be just that. If you think back to your New Year's resolutions, not sure how many of you are still keeping up with them. If you're listening in live and you are, or you're not, or you've got any other thoughts on wellbeing this evening, it'd be great to hear from you. Please do text into the show. So how are we going to make sure that we give ourselves the best opportunity of actually sticking to our intention to take that rest? And for me, and this was a big one, it sounds so simple, but for me, it was actually giving myself permission. Sometimes we have this idea, I certainly did, was I hated the idea of doing nothing. And I felt like, I suppose it comes from that, always on when you're in school, but actually, you get used to that state. And I just felt like I was wasting time if I wasn't doing something. And that actually made me sort of use the phrase to myself of I'm doing resting. That was actually how I ended up, at least initially, being able to take that time for me. That's just my example. As I said before, different things different for different people. But working with my mindset as it was a few years ago, and then being able to challenge that, and then seeing the benefits of taking that rest, of taking that time intentionally. And, it goes back to the 7 types of rest. It is about being intentional, about making choices, about choosing to do things that will support you. We talked earlier on about that brain body integration, and that it's a combination of your physical and your mental health that all combines actually to make you feel well now, but also to give you that resilience over time. So some people, yeah, it's true. Some people feel it is lazy to be doing nothing, or that you're not achieving anything. That perhaps you are wasting that time. Are you? Are you wasting that time off that is really valuable? But actually, it's not that at all. It's taking that time to slow down and appreciate the things that perhaps you don't ordinarily notice. So it's not a waste. And the key thing, again, as I mentioned earlier on, this is not about quick wins. This is not about things you're going to see the result of straight away necessarily. Things that will add up incrementally over time. Phrase that I've seen online quite a lot. Again, I think it's so true. But self-care is not selfish. Sometimes you see the phrase "putting your own oxygen mask on" first, which they may, in the end of the day, be a simplification, but the message is the same. You need to help yourself actually before you can help others. And again, said earlier on in the show, as teachers, as educators, as people in the classroom, we spend a lot of time helping other people, but actually to do that effectively, we need to help ourselves first. So what does it all mean? It goes back to what I said earlier on about giving ourselves permission to rest. And if you think about it a bit like talk to yourself in the mirror, talk to yourself how you would a friend. You would say to a friend, take some rest. You would say to a friend, it's okay to stop, to take that time for yourself. So if we can give that permission to someone else, I think we can then think about actually we can give that permission to ourselves too. There's a real merit once you've given that permission, once you've got that sort of shift in your mindset, then to building a routine, which helps you get those activities in, those 7 types of rest. Said lots of times now, it is about being intentional. It's about making a choice. So when can you fit them in? If you have children at home, you probably have a bedtime routine for them. And actually, that does more than just help you as the parent. It also signals to your child's body that it is time to start winding down. So my question to you is, have you got something similar for yourself? Have you got something that you do or that you stop doing that you can do in the summer, but actually is then, we're talking about how you can support your well-being into the future, is something that you can carry on when we do go back to school in September, or that with very small tweaks you can carry on doing once term time is up and running again. Another thing to think about is when you're sort of being intentional, it's also about being realistic and making things achievable. So if you haven't been running for ages, is running 3 times a week going to be achievable? It may be. Again, everybody's different, but pick something that is going to be achievable for you, something that you can feel successful at, because once we feel that success, we get the well-being boost of having done it, but we also get that reward of I've kept at it, I've done it once, I've done it twice, I've carried on going, and then it becomes a habit and something that we are more likely to just keep doing. For some people it's about accountability, so you might have somebody that you run with, or a set time that's just always the time, and your family know. They don't necessarily come with you, but they know that's when you do that. So that's a really important thing. I think around making this sustainable is building your 7 types of rest into a routine. Now, another subtle shift can be in our choice of language around the rest we're taking. So if we're talking about going swimming, so instead of, oh, I need to fit in going swimming, or, oh, I've got to make sure I'm at swimming at 5 o'clock, can you reframe that? Can you think about it in the sense of, I get to go swimming? For some people, it might be not just the act of swimming, but what are the benefits? So saying to yourself, I know I feel refreshed after I've been swimming. Maybe going swimming is giving you some peace and quiet away from the kids, I don't know, or from from something that you perhaps have been struggling with doing. But reframing and refocusing our language, we're talking about how we can give ourselves the best opportunity to get into a routine of looking after ourselves in terms of well-being. Reframing our language can make a little bit of a difference, and it is about those little things, as I said before, the little things that add up over time and make that big difference. So shifting our mindset, giving ourselves permission, and picking things that are achievable and building them into a routine are all going to help to give us that sense of purpose around our well-being, but also to help us stick to it over time, make it sustainable, and make it something that isn't just for the summer holidays, but is actually something that we can carry on with. Sorry to think about going back to school already, but it is something that we can think about into the long term as well. So, couple of bits just to go back over from the beginning, just for anybody who's joined recently. We have been talking about rest, we have been talking about making that intentional, and we're thinking about how our brain and our body all connect together. So, just going to hear one more time from our sponsors this evening, and then I'm going to try do my best to tie all of those things together.
Hi teachers, we're Apps for Good, and we give schools like yours free introductory computing courses. Our courses are for everyone, including those who aren't computing teachers, and they're fully equipped with resources mapped to the UK computing curriculum. Independent learning is central to our courses. Your students will develop essential and digital skills by working in teams to create prototype apps for good. We'll even connect you with industry volunteers to give real-world feedback. Let's empower every young person you teach to shape their future with technology. Speak to us at www.appsforgood.org. Imagine having your own instructional coach available 24/7. Now you can with the Teaching How-Tos platform. This highly personalised social platform empowers busy teachers to learn and apply evidence-based teaching techniques, either independently, working collaboratively with their peers, or with our new AI assistant. The platform features over 160 visual guides to teaching techniques, designed to help you quickly and easily implement high-impact practices that boost student engagement and improve learning outcomes. Join over 200 institutions worldwide that are elevating their teaching practices with the How-To app. No gurus, just practical support anytime you need it. Interested in finding out more? Visit teachinghowtos.com and register for our next webinar.
Are you looking for best practices and innovative strategies to foster confident, lifelong readers? Watch sessions by thought leaders in education, literacy experts, and EdTech specialists from the International Reading Conference for free. The lineup included renowned speakers such as TV personality and education expert Basit Siddiqui and beloved children's author Michael Rosen. The three-day conference explored a range of topics at the forefront of the current educational landscape, with sessions relevant for all educators and key stages. Sign up to receive the recordings for free by visiting the Reading Solutions UK website at readingsolutionsuk.co.uk.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading.
Thank you once again to our sponsors for your support of Teachers Talk Radio. It's much appreciated. So, coming to the end today of the show, all about wellbeing for the summer holiday. Thinking about intentional rest, particularly the 7 types of rest, and how, if we focus on things like that, we can support our body in terms of, well, our brain and body get to that equilibrium. I mentioned the word homeostasis earlier on in a study that I'd been reading in preparation for this show, all about how we can get ourselves feeling in balance. And importantly, maintaining that is not just something for the summer holidays, but things that we can do throughout term time as well. And I was actually interestingly thinking about some of those comments, people saying they struggle to switch off. Actually, if we're depleted of all our resources, we are going to find things more difficult. So perhaps if we can do things throughout the year that mean we don't perhaps get to that point, or if we do start struggling, it's only a little bit. It'd be best if we didn't struggle at all. But I do appreciate the pressures and the demands on us as teachers. Um, but if we can do things that help ourselves and kind of drip feed that well-being, so that it's always something that we're keeping at the forefront of what we're doing. So, just to summarise, I was reading a book by Brian Harris. This is the 17 things, it's quite a lot actually, but 17 things resilient teachers do, and 4 things that they hardly ever do. And I thought it was a really nice summary of all of the things that we've covered this evening. Um, and, number one, unsurprisingly really, but number one, things that resilient teachers do out of 17 was prioritising self care. Now, Brian Harris doesn't necessarily specify that that has to be the 7 types of rest. There's obviously lots of things that we can do to help ourselves and that count as self care. But I thought it was a nice, you know, corroboration, I suppose, of the things we've been talking about this evening. He also talked about setting boundaries. Again, some links with making routines for ourselves. That's all about having boundaries, about when we will and when we won't do things. Interestingly, he also mentioned CPD and having a growth mindset and thinking about ways to solve problems. Again, linking back to the 7 types of rest, that made me think particularly about the creative rest, giving ourselves an opportunity to think about things in a different way, to focus entirely on perhaps one thing, whereas, quite often we feel like we're multitasking and trying to do lots of things at once. The other 2 things, say there were 17, but the other 2 that sort of resonated with me, particularly given what we talked about in this show today, is practicing gratitude and creating and using your support network. And that was key actually. He said it's not just about creating that network, but actually do reach out to those people, do make those connections, because actually you might be, thinking, oh, perhaps I should text or contact whoever, and you don't get around to doing it. And maybe they were thinking the same and they didn't get around to do it. One of you's got to make the first move. So it was very sort of up on using your support network, not just having it there in the background. And if you're wondering what the 4 things that they hardly ever do, the opposite to being resilient, the 4 things was they hardly ever dwell on negativity. It's not to say negative things don't happen, they do, but it's about not getting stuck in them. They don't isolate themselves. Again, nice little link there to social rest that we talked about earlier on. They don't overcommit and they don't ignore their self care. So, real emphasis on making sure we look after our mental health. Self care is mental health and our physical health, actually. I think it's really important to say that. And sort of real emphasis throughout the book is that resilience is not an inherent trait that some people have and some people don't. And I like this. He said it's a set of practices and attitudes that can be developed over time. So again, a real nice sort of summing up of why, not just what the 7 types of rest are, but why they work, why they're important, and hopefully how we can expect to see the benefits if they are something that we stick to. So I just wanted to say once again, thank you for listening. Whether you're listening live this evening at the end of term, brilliant if you are, and equally brilliant if you're listening as a podcast at some point in your summer break. I hope you have a wonderful summer holiday, and that the ideas we talked about this evening are useful, give you some food for thought. And I just want to leave you with one final quote, which goes as follows: "You are not wasting a day by resting. you are enabling yourself to feel better tomorrow. Thank you very much for listening. Enjoy your holiday.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.